Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here, and I'm joined again with my friend Tim Partridge. Some of you may remember Tim from the Ninja Turtles commentary we did in the summer. Now this is the final commentary to my horror season, and it's on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the 1986 classic, or cult classic as it were. Doesn't have many fans, but I'm sure it's gained more fans over time. Now, this is an audio commentary, not a video, but you can sync the commentary with your own copy of the film by putting the timestamp to 0 and pressing play now. Now, do you think after 13 years, Cannon thought this film would do just as much money as the first one?
Well, I guess that you could make a comparison to the Death Wish franchise, in that they revived Death Wish with Death Wish 2 in 1982, and then further on they kind of made it their own franchise by 1985.
They had, didn't they? But Death Wish 2 had made quite a bit of money when it came out, didn't it?
Well, maybe there was the same thought process going on when Cannon were putting together their slate. Who knows? Sure. And also, too, I guess, because this was, I believe, part of a 3-picture deal.
That's right.
Toby Hooper and Cannon Films. So it might have seemed obvious to go back to that original classic, kind of like with Michael Winner and Cannon, how they went back to Death Wish being the most well-known of his films.
Because Toby's first film was Life Force.
With Cannon, followed by the Invaders from Mars remake.
Because every film he did with that 3-picture deal, the budget got lower and lower and lower, and this one ended up with like 4 million, and total box office was probably double that. But
so it made its
money, but it kind of apparently made more than what had actually been published, what some reports had said.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that Shocking Truth documentary, which is on the DVD itself.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So it's all kind of a bit like the first film had problems with its the producers not being totally faithful about how much money the film actually made and how much was generated between the actors and the cast and crew, etc. So apparently it's kind of a similar situation with this one, but it's not that much. I was
going to say this score is great. I love this opening music, which kind of obviously it recalls the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre score, which was composed by Toby Hooper and Wayne Bell.
Wayne Bell, yeah.
And this time it's by Jerry Lambert and Toby Hooper together. Jerry Lambert, I believe, had been went on to be musical engineer for Henry Manfredini on some of the later Friday the 13th movies and The Wishmaster as well.
But this was Jerry's first film, wasn't it? Well, as it says on IMDb.
According to IMDb, I think, yeah.
So he got stuck in that horror route, isn't it, with his scores?
And there are more people. Canon regular Alan Jakubowicz edited it.
What else did he do with Cannon?
He did Delta Force.
Oh, okay.
And he actually did some of Toby Hooper's later films as well. And it's shot by Richard Corus, and the makeup this time is by Tom Savini.
But Toby Hooper's other films, though, like Life Force, weren't edited by a Cannon editor, was it?
Well, Life Force had been edited by one of the James Bond editors, and
that's right.
John Grover. I believe.
John Grover, yeah.
And I can't remember who did Invaders from Mars.
It's kind of like the less money he was given, the more control reins were given around. Well, Cannon were taking more control of it by lumping in with their own editors.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was just who was available. Who knows?
Possibly, yeah.
And as I said, lots of them have gone on to work with Hooper again further in the future, and now that this opening sets a completely different tone to the original film.
Yeah, because the first one opened with these grave robbing and a news report, where this one doesn't have any news report apart from the opening prologue, which gives you this indication of what's happened the last 13 years.
Well, the radio is used as a completely different device in this, in that it's actually opens up for the principal characters of the film.
Yeah.
DJ Venita and LJ, the producer, as well. And there's this interactive element too. But I mean, to start the film with the gun-toting, trigger-happy yuppies going through the countryside, it already, you're led to not relate too much to the victims in this, as opposed to the first one.
Well, it fits within that slasher genre thing, and to a certain degree. I mean, they kind of you always get characters who are just complete arseholes.
But this is
in a film.
But this is much more satirical. I mean, there seems to be like a commentary on 80s material attitudes, and it seems to be somewhat of a satire on the most negative stereotypes of Texas too. I mean, you've got the opening shots, the mailboxes being shot.
Yeah.
And then you've got, as I say, these two obnoxious yuppies. So by the time they meet their fate later on, you've got no kind of emotional connection to them. Plus, they're played in a very heightened manner. It's caricature, kind of bigger, stylized performances.
This was kind of a drastic change from the first one, and where also you were saying earlier about trying to be a little bit more sort of sexually realistic, but this one's kind of it's completely heightened all the time.
I mean, I think there are heightened stylistic elements in the first one. There was a strong feel of sort of expressionist horror, especially as far as the camera work went, but even with some of the performances as well. I mean, such as when the victims are hit over the head and you see the bodies vibrating and having those spasm reactions, even though I believe there is some kind of medical truth to that. It almost becomes like a vocabulary within the world of the first film for all of the deaths, and it is kind of somewhat heightened. And then of course you had the production design in the first film as well, with the chicken heads and the skin and skeletons used as chairs.
The whole chair, wasn't it? The whole couch made out of bone,
But it's still kind of, it's a plausible kind of nightmare, I guess.
Yeah.
And things like the sliding the sliding slaughterhouse door as well in the house in the first film, which they kind of recreate later on in this. But as
we get through the film, they try and recreate similar moments from the first film.
Yeah. And now we're back to the DJ Venita and
Stretch, isn't she? He's called, isn't she?
Yeah, and LJ, and as we said in the first film, you kind of just you had the song, occasionally songs on the radio, and you had the radio broadcaster kind of announcing the news as more of a sort of expositionary device, whereas here they
don't.
Characters.
No, I don't think there's any news reports, is there? Really, throughout the film.
No, and
no.
It's all
quite interesting.
It's all more kind of for leisure, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And also, too, one thing to note is the inclusion of the soundtrack with this as well. You had, I think it's Timbuk 3 on the soundtrack, and also
they pop up a couple of times at the end.
And Danny Elfman comes in.
Boingo Boingo, isn't it?
Here, and it's more, I guess, it's a more commercial element. I don't know if there was a soundtrack release for this.
I'd probably imagine so, but I'm guessing it probably didn't even include any of the score, but just the pop music that was included.
But this is, these are sort of relevant pop music acts that had been,
oh sure,
at the time having songs used in other movies.
Oh, like Bongo Bongo with Weird Science, isn't it?
Yeah, and now we've got the this interesting stylized set piece where we've got the truck with, soon to reveal, Leatherface atop it with his chainsaw.
Because he's carrying his brother, isn't he, from the first one?
Right.
He's using, isn't he, the dead body? Because in the first film, the hiker gets run over at the end. His body, they kept.
Oh,
his
the
body.
hitchhiker.
Yeah, hitchhiker.
Right, yeah.
Now they've kept him here. Now, because when I first saw this, I always thought the guy with the metal plate was the hitchhiker. But obviously, because when you watch the film again, the first one, he gets completely run over. You think, oh, he'd be totally dead. And obviously later find out it was actually his brother who's been in Vietnam and wasn't in the first one. He comes back in the second. But this is his, the hitchhiker's body. They've obviously kept.
It's being sort of marionetted
for sentimental purposes,
Yeah. And I believe Chop Top, who we meet later on, is a twin brother.
That's right, yeah.
Of the hitchhiker. But again, here we've got this sequence. We've got these kind of jock yuppies in their cars.
This seems something like out of like an Elm Street movie or like Friday movie, doesn't it? This sort of sequence.
Yeah, well, again, it's you said the teen slasher thing, but it's so big, it's massive. I mean, the kids have got guns that they're liberally firing away on the side of the road. But then they, you got one of them dressed in a clean, yellow pullover, and it doesn't. They're avoiding naturalism here. This is a heightened world. In the DJ booth, they've got a poster called The Incredible Something. It's like a band, but they're mimicking the Breakfast Club pose. But also this film, obviously copied with its theatrical poster, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, here this is it's great stylized action because you've got this truck going in reverse, racing this car on a bridge, and logically. All they have to do is slam the brakes and they're free. Yeah. But we just play along with it. We love it. It's fun. It's incredibly playful and silly, and it kind of affords some joke. And then here we have this... the complete shock moment. You don't actually see... Well, I swear some of it was cut when he actually got hit by the chainsaw. This seems like a bit of a... I mean, it's a nice shock reveal as well, because you don't kind of expect it. Oh, that's pretty nasty. And here we've got the head that's cut in half. It's pure class Tom Savini stuff. But even with like the squirting arteries and stuff coming out, it's quite heightened. It's not trying to be real. With the first one, when it was actually shown in the UK, they banned it for so many years, but they actually made no cuts to it when they actually reviewed it because there was no blood and gore in it. It's just what the film entailed, basically, what the visual element to it. Yeah, if you look at LJ's, if you notice on the microphone he had on the hood, he had the mask of a horse mouth. Yeah, I wonder what that was. So everything's coming from the horse's mouth. Ah, and this is the introduction of Lefty, Lieutenant Unright, played by Dennis Hopper, giving one of his interesting. Blue Velvet era performances. Yeah. But this is a different Texas to what we saw in the first film, which was more kind of it's more of countryside, more rural, more rustic. Felt like something from not even from the 70s. It felt like even before then. Whereas here we are, and it's kind of it's you kind of know it's in the 80s, don't you? But it's a highway lane going up to a freeway with a bridge. It's vastly more populated. And we're seeing concrete. Yeah, we're seeing a lot more. There's communication lines in the background. It feels like, even though a lot of this is probably built at the same time, we're being exposed to a different part. It's a much more, I guess, a bit more. Well, he does reveal in a minute that the incidents occurred in the south of Texas. This could probably imply it's the north of Texas. But even too, now we've got Dennis Hopper talking to this. This other official, and we'd never, in the first film, we only really stayed with the kids in the van. Yeah. We never saw anybody from the outside apart from the end sequence where with the truck driver. Yeah, he comes to rescue the woman, doesn't he? But picked up, and it's kind of a relief. Whereas here, you're seeing the rest of society. Because I think one of the things in the first film that they use as a way to kind of alienate the audience is to have this rural landscape with a house in the middle of it full of the freak show stuff. Yeah. And so you're kind of left in this sort of this island of horror, whereas here you're surrounded by the real world. Yeah. And it's the other. They actually kind of inverted it. They've inverted the idea of the first film, which is to have as I said, this mad land with these normal people in it who are visiting. Yeah, sure. And now you've kind of got later on with the rolling grill company, you've got in their kind of motorized, in the what's it called, the last round at Rolling Grill, the company, the villains. Well, you were saying earlier about the sort of the freak show in the house, but that's become this like amusement park thing they've built under this existing. So it's hiding park away. Yeah, rather than. But it's far more elaborate in this time round, Yeah, and it's much more theatrical as well, but. It's within a kind of developed part of Texas as opposed to being in a rural place where, I think there's a great shot in the first film where you can see bits of the art direction. You can see bits of
it's
stuff
like clocks, isn't there?
Hanging from trees, yeah. And it's all kind of weird and slightly surreal.
But the good thing is, like, the people in the film don't notice all these stuff hanging around in outside the house, so they're completely only the audience know what's going on. Do you think that maybe they're hiding underground now because everything's become so developed they can't really have this house out in the field somewhere and be committing these atrocities?
Well, as I said, they've now got this last Roundup Rolling Grill company as well. Sorry, I was trying to find the name for that earlier, which is almost this. It's a slightly Sweeney Todd kind of thing, with the the chili sauce competitions. We've got a cameo here by Toby Hooper. Great.
Now, when I watched this, I swear to God, there's like a whole scene missing because then it just cuts to Dennis Hopper looking all like tired and eyes looking bruised. It just felt like the whole scene was missing. Like he's been in a fight. It was like, what's happened?
And also Stretch is kind of speaking to him as though she's responding to an outcry for information.
Exactly.
Because
there's apparently loads of footage cut where no one's actually visually seen this this uncut version.
Right.
I don't think it's on DVD or Blu-ray or whatever.
But yeah, these are very heightened performances. I just wanted to mention just about the actress who plays Stretch too. I think her performance it's quite naturalistic actually compared to some of the more heightened performances in the film, and I think because
she has to carry a lot on her shoulders this whole
absolutely
film.
But she's also kind of on tiptoe. She's quite an interesting person. She reminds me a bit of Juliette Lewis.
Yes.
But kind of before Juliette Lewis was doing films with the with her southern tone and everything, but she there's something kind of responsible about her too, and she reminds me quite a lot of the spiritually of the main character in the first film as well. But especially in some of the later scenes where we're at the the radio station, and there's a lot of physical comedy that's going on, and she's having to play it straight. She does an incredible job.
That's right. Well, she has to try and remain scared the entire time because the people they're interacting with, Leatherface and one with the metal plate in his head. I've forgotten his name now.
Oh, Chopped Up. Yeah.
Chopped Up, yeah, completely, hyper mental characters,
And much like the lead in the first, she's scantily clad as well.
Yeah, they keep that going.
But she manages to maintain a lot of dignity, and it never looks cheap and never sounds cheap, and you always trusting her judgment, as a viewer. I think it's a huge accomplishment. I think in a film like this, especially as it's straddling with its black comedy and satire and horror and exploitation horror at the same time.
Well, Cannon were when they first sort of started distributing movies in the USA, it was all about exploitation. It was all about tits and fight scenes, And this kind of Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of was lumped in that category of exploitation, and doing a sequel to that and then being a distributor of that type of movie would seem like a match made in
But
heaven,
I think a lot of these kind of horror movies of this era too, there's accusations made about the girls being portrayed as kind of cheap and sort of sexually fetishized as well.
Sure.
Which I think when you've got things like Alien and Halloween, I think they kind of crushed a lot of that because such dignity was given to those roles by great actresses, like Jamie Lee Curtis and Sigourney Weaver, and I think the lady playing Stretch is kind of on par with that too. Plus, she gets all the kind of Texas nuances, with the accent and the small talk, and
Oh yeah. There's a scene now where
and she's playing a character. I was just going to say she's playing a character within the film as her DJ voice as well. She's playing a voice.
Yeah.
In addition to playing herself.
But she keeps. Yeah, definitely, because you see her switch her voice to do her DJ stuff, don't you?
Yeah.
But now it's revealed that.
Oh yeah, with this chili cook-off.
That these.
I assume is the old man from the first film.
Yeah, his
name's now Drayton Sawyer, and he's a cook, and he's running this last roundup rolling grill.
He's won it for 2 years, hasn't he?
But the chili contest.
He's won it.
But this again, is this kind of material satirical side. In the first film, these were sort of very backwater people, quite they're
quite shut off from society, but this one they're completely out in the open.
And they seem they're seen as sort of uneducated as well. Whereas here, they're going to these community chili competitions and winning, and they've got their own truck with a car phone. We see later on, and they've kind of made it. They've made it in Reaganist 80s America, which I think there's a little bit of social commentary going on there about the time.
Because that's what Toby has said. A lot of the black comedy was kind of not paid attention to in the first one,
but here it's really upped. It's
really pushed
and
it
stylized
more.
too.
Yeah.
And here's another material moment as well, when Dennis Hopper comes to the chainsaw shop, and when you when you see like in the first film, they go to the old man's place, and I think you see a Coca-Cola sign, and that's about as far as capitalism gets.
I thought when I saw this again recently, number 2, that was the same building, but now it's become like it's chainsaw place,
But it's all like brands, and it's a chain. It's chain shopping as well.
Sure.
There's chain brands of things. I mean, as I said, you saw. I think you see a gas station and you see a Coca-Cola sign in the first film, and that's kind of it for capitalism. It's all it's almost like Wild West territory.
That's right.
Whereas here it's like quite up in your face.
And, there's like in the background you've got advertising. You got.
But even before when we saw the highway, we didn't just see with the cars that have been crushed next to the bridge.
Yeah.
When Dennis Hopper arrives there, we're not just seeing let's say like a backwater road.
No.
We're seeing a highway with everybody having a car, and we're seeing all the big intersections, and we're seeing this world where everyone is up and go to it. And here's the chainsaw reveal of the chainsaw.
And he buys 3 of them.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Look at even the branding, the way they're all pretty much red as well.
I think he even buys one which is identical to Leatherface's. I think the big one.
From this film or from the first film?
From this film. It looks identical to one he's using later on. The largest one you can get, I think.
But the way that notice again, even the branding with the hat too, everything, here, look how much red is on the screen.
Yeah.
Too, It's trying to show everything as, within a...
When we first saw this, I remember you thinking, "Oh, that is that Toby Hooper's dad? Looks just like him, but a bit taller and minus a beard."
But when you see the outside of this building, and it's just this crooked little shed.
Yeah. And you can go test them out on this like giant tree.
This is what I love, though. I mean, we're talking a lot about the the form in relation to the story here, and this is what I love about Toby Hooper. I think he's a really, really incredibly underrated director as far as form and performance and all every kind of aspect of filmmaking.
You rarely see a bad performance in a Toby Hooper film. I don't think.
But every frame matters, It's. I mean, this has just been thought about so much. There's so much going on here that you can pull out of it. And every camera move means something. Every sound means something. And this is somewhat terrifying. This kind of goes a bit back to the first film with the testing of the the chainsaw outside and the guy getting joy.
Yeah.
Watching at the same time.
Yeah, that's really weird. It just goes because it's kind of a black comedy, but when you see his reaction, he's like cackling away at the enjoyment of what he's seeing. It's good,
Is it the barbarianism of slashing stuff to bits, or is it the fact that he's making a sale?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, I think it's more about the barbaric way he's sort of attacking that tree.
But it could be, it could be read either way.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I think he's a very good director of comedy too.
Yeah.
But without cancelling out the horror.
Do you think he's? You could look at Chainsaw 2, very much like Gremlins 2.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I actually think Michael Winner's Death Wish 3 is kind of in that ballpark too, where they've kind of gone, you know what, we've had so much criticism from the last one, or we've been asked to kind of up our game for the next one.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Let's just pull in all our favours, pull in all of our mates, and let's just go and make the biggest pantomime ever.
Yeah.
Let's make a parody of it. Let's just do it. Let's just go big. Let's go for broke. Let's do it so big that nobody's going to ask for another one. You know, and I kind of get the feeling you get that with Gremlins too.
You
get
do.
that with Texas Chainsaw.
I love that.
You get that with Death Wish 3.
Good. Yeah,
I think, and they're all kind of satirical. They're all kind of saying something about modern life,
sure,
and capitalism. Well, especially in Gremlins.
Well, Gremlins 2 kind of takes the piss more, doesn't it, with its satire on the first one. But this one kind of just goes completely mad with it, but still kind of retains some of those similar moments.
I think both kind of do, and they both recreate moments from the first film and set them up too, massively. And both still manage to have earnest performances, kind of.
Definitely.
Key. And the other thing too is right now we've got Stretch and Lefty together, sat at the bottom of the stairs talking, and as I say, Hopper's playing it kind of, you know, it's a slightly bigger, more stylized performance. Kind of that era, which I think kind of, you know, you had Blue Velvet, and then I think probably even up until something like the Mario Brothers movie, you know, he's doing
Speed.
Speed
is
kind of
mad villain, you know.
But that was somewhat grounded in context, whereas these are kind of like he's exploring something, and he's brilliant, he's amazing to watch, and he has so much charisma. Yeah. And I think the film does benefit massively from having a star like him.
Oh, it does benefit greatly, but there's... either we don't know because some of these scenes may have been cut, but he's off screen for a long time.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the balance between, as I said, his performance and the lady playing Stretch's performance, you know, I think it's a good. I think they have a good chemistry. I think you can see the trust when he's on screen. You know, you can see that she's feeling a bit more confident and safe about things, and they're looking to each other, and there's a bond. They're just a really good bond on screen, and I think
he does let her down though, because he sets her up, doesn't he, to get but then he doesn't really. He comes to us to save her at the end, but kind of a little bit too late. But we'll get to that bit.
And here we are with old man Drayton Sawyer in his car, with his Grand Champion Chili winning award.
It's like chili cook-offs, like in the South Park where he cooks Scott Tenorman when he gets yeets.
But it's the idea that you know that through capitalism you can reinvent yourself in the 80s. You know, even if
Ronald Reagan way.
Even if you are a barbaric redneck who's murdered people.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Everyone's got a chance.
But it's revealed that,
and with his car phone as well.
Is it the deleted scene that was? You can find it online. That their money's come from the guy with the metal plate head. He's kind of payout for the damage he received in Vietnam.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, we read that, didn't we?
Yeah. Because it's kind of... It could imply that it just made their money by basically selling this chili through this van
in a Sweeney
over
Todd.
time.
Well, there is that Sweeney Todd-esque moment we had earlier, which we didn't mention with the peppercorn shell. And the bone, you know, that gets caught,
wasn't it?
Yeah. But it's totally out of Sweeney. I actually thought when I first saw this that the film would go more in that direction, that it might be more about that. But they play it down. They use it more as a device to keep them, to keep the family of killers from the first film kind of more up to date and I think accepted in this newer world, rather than it being a plot device.
Sure.
So I think this again.
Yeah, with her change now, sort of her radio personality.
She jumps in and out, and she's not insincere in either. Too, you know, she does a genuinely warm, friendly voice.
Yeah.
With all of the the diction and dialect.
When you look at the cast list for this film, it's actually very small. I mean, generally sometimes with sequels, they get more people thrown into it, but it still keeps its cast and its numbers very low, like the original.
There's hinted at a little bit of chemistry between LG and Stretch as well.
Yeah. She only wants him as a friend.
And I can't work out, is he spitting or tobacco, or is he just spitting?
He's just spitting, I think. Yeah.
But I think that's a nice little character trait that he has.
Yeah, which he does continue doing throughout the film.
Yeah,
even when he's
we'll get to that later.
Yeah,
but it's
bad condition.
It's a nice little bit of, you know, as we said, with these broad stereotypes, cartoon stereotypes we're using of Texas and Texan, all the negative, all the kind of negative bile that's been you know, pulled together and then thrown out, and it's done in a kind of creative, light way.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that's the thing with the first film. You kind of get the impression that they were telling a story with... sorry, who's the killer?
It's Ed Gein.
Yeah, the Ed Gein story. They're kind of doing something that's kind of got its roots in... well...
in reality, really.
Yeah, completely.
What actually happened, you know, it's the most disgusting sort of...
But it's something that couldn't be told anywhere else but Texas, maybe.
Because Texas is so fucking vast and huge. Something like this could have happened, and when watching the first film, you think, oh yeah, there's blatantly someone out there just like this, and obviously there was, because the story was based on an actual real event.
And also, Toby Hooper is a Texan.
Yeah.
Who grew up there and was studying film there too.
Sure.
So it's got all of his.
Well, it was one of those stories you always heard, wasn't it, where his relatives would come around and tell him this horrible incident that happened in the late 50s, and he'd just be like shocked by what he'd heard.
So, but it makes sense. It's something personal. It
is, personal connection for him. Yeah.
Whereas with this one, you know, I guess that's the thing. Like, probably maybe it was the same with Death Wish with Michael Winner as well. But you know, once you've kind of got that in your system, where do you kind of go when people say this is a cash cow? Where do you
think? Yeah, because once you've kind of told your side of the story, what else to go with it? And this is kind of what's happened with this one. But I think they've kind of got away with it.
Well, in Death Wish 2, when it came out, Michael Winner had said that, you know, times had changed so much in the 8 years that had passed.
Sure.
So that there was a reason to revisit the film.
Yeah.
You know, as we kind of said before, like, you know, I think with this, maybe Hooper hit a brick wall and just said, let's just do an all out. Let's just do it. Let's just make a
you know,
parody.
if he did the same thing again, where, you know, it's like another sort of hick town where it's a very small population, you think he'd just end up repeating himself, but just having it more gory to sort of satisfy the current generation of horror fans.
Well, both Death Wish and Texas Chainsaw are kind of based on, you know, on real life to a degree, or they're both at least saying something about, you know, society. You know, when Death Wish 2 came out, it had a lot of criticism because it was seen as, you know, unimaginative and exploitative, and I think that probably you could imagine that position, you know, Michael Winner to then think, well, what am I going to do for the third one? Let's just go all out. Let's just do a parody. And I wonder if, you know, maybe Cannon, maybe Hooper, I don't know, you know, maybe they thought, hey, let's just go straight to the parody. Let's not try and do a exploitation remake of the first one.
Well, Cannon had edited the movie heavily, so judging by, you know, a lot of their miscalculations or kind of what they really wanted from some of these films that were released during that period, they probably just saw the name. I thought, we can sell this again, make money off it, and whatever, you know, sort of, you know, in terms of satire and what it was really trying to do, they probably didn't understand, and they probably cut out quite a lot of that, which is kind of evident in this film, because as we're watching it, it does feel you're kind of missing some scenes. I
love all this sort of material tat on the side where it's chopped up. In his introduction here, he's talking. You know, you got those little.
You got the green lighting as well, isn't it? You got the like, pinkish lighting in the background.
But you know that master shot when you're introducing him, and on either side of him there were those, you know, bits of novelty lights that you kind of buy from those, you know, those novelty shops or from catalogues, you know, novelty gift magazines, and stuff. And again, it's that excess.
His costume design is very much within that 70s look. Actually, away from the, you know.
Well, it's
late
the
60s, actually.
Well, it's the Nam thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's supposed to have come from Nam, and he's doing this thing with his.
He's picking at his.
He's got a coat hanger that's been bent, and he's using it to scratch the top of his head. And at this point, we don't realise that he's got a metal plate on the side of his head. So but he's picking at it too, and then peeling it and eating it.
His skin. Oh,
kind of like a child, you know.
When you got sunburn, you pick your skin. You know, obviously don't eat it, but
or picking the snot in your nose, or like a child. And then he's heating up the the coat hanger and then scratching it to give him some kind of heated sensation. But these are great claustrophobic moments with
very tight shots.
Well, the great wide-angle lenses as well, very close to the actors, which Hooper did a lot of in all of his films.
Didn't the first one? There's a lot of his visual styles in that film. It developed over time. It was there.
Well, everyone calls the first film kind of a documentary. Like a docudrama.
It starts off like that.
But throughout there are a lot of wide-angle lens shots. There's poetic, transitional shots where you go into the sun and coming out and, defocusing on something and then focusing on something else.
Yeah.
And it's quite stylized. And as I said, the performances at times almost feel sort of German expressionistic.
Yeah.
So it's not entirely a docudrama, like it's kind of cooked out to be. And whereas this film, I think, kind of just... Well, there's the documentary side's kind of gone at this point. Yeah. It's just completely stylized. And this has got one of the best shock scare moments in history.
Oh man, yeah! When I watched it again the other day,
this is masterful horror directing.
Yeah,
because they bring the dialogue right down, so you kind of like you're trying to hear what what Chop Top's saying, and because he's resisting to leave the radio station. She's just saying where the exit is, and she's getting nervous, and her voice is kind of going down too. Your ears are starting to adjust, and you're starting to lean forward to hear what's saying. And there's this black space behind them, which is brought up theatrically. It doesn't make any sense in terms of realism,
the light would come
but
on
it's fantastic, and it works as a shock effect.
It's probably the only big jump scare in the film, I think. Actually,
there's another one later on. But this is a great use of space, and they're not showing the space either behind them where Leatherface pops out from, so you don't know. You're
I love the little jibe he says, not a jibe, but sort of reference where he goes, I thought it was that music, that recording was from the Rambo 3 soundtrack.
So listen here. The dialogue's getting lower, starting to whisper.
You're right.
She's talking and you're trying to hear what she's saying under her breath. See, she's whispering. You want to hear what she's saying? Whispering. Turns his head so you can't really hear. And then pop up, jump scare. Massive.
Well, actually, no. Because we were saying about the lighting, we actually see Chop Top turn the light switch on.
Oh, really?
On the right, yeah. To get Leatherface's cue.
Wow.
Like you were saying earlier about the referencing the shutter door in the first one, which kind of
the slaughterhouse door, and here we've got they kind of purposely built it into this radio set.
Why would it have that?
Just so your memory kind of remembers the slaughterhouse,
sure.
and especially when you've got Leatherface running around. And this bent plate, I love the line of dialogue he has here where he says, "Dog will hunt." As he's encouraging his brother to run on and kill. I also like the dry ice that they've put on the wig as well.
Yeah,
It gets burned. That's fantastic makeup, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can just see what's that badge that he's got there about being Texan. You see, as you said, he's got the tie-dyed kind of outfit, hasn't he? As you said,
Woodstock.
Yeah.
As well.
But he's got the tie-dye clothes of the era, as you said, late 60s.
Right. All he's missing is a Blue Peter badge. That's all he needs.
But he is very much a throwback to the late 60s.
Oh, sure.
Although he's got a feather bow around his neck as well. Oh no, is that the wig?
That's the wig he's put around his
But it
neck.
Comes almost like a
campy
feather bow.
I think the rest of the film he has it round his neck.
Yeah. It's playing to the count.
But it's interesting here where she's kind of like, don't show fear, she says. Like, it's kind of like she's... I don't know, she's already knows something already. That, why would she presume, if I don't show any fear, it'll be fine. Oh, he's going through some laser discs there? No, vinyl.
They even hear at the shrill parts where she's having to just scream and scream and scream and scream. It never kind of seems it never
Well,
seems
number one
insincere.
as well really pushes the screaming as well. And a lot, big chunks of it.
You were saying before, actually, we didn't hit on this before, but we were talking about that sort of element of parody. I think one of the other things to bear in mind is the influence of films such as Return of the Living Dead, which came out the year before, which was like a parody. It's pushing for the more kind of stylized parody elements of horror, while also being a really scary horror at the same time.
You think, if you think about it, if the first one was very much influential on other films, especially things like Alien, in terms of its how it was structured,
and Halloween, I guess.
And do you think now this film is a parody on what's current at the time?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It could fit within that bracket that Return of the Living Dead had.
Sure. Because he'd set the standard to a certain degree. Toby Hooper did. Now he's kind of like parodying of what everyone's copying him.
But also, Day of the Dead as well.
Yeah.
Kind of has elements with the the bad soldier from that too.
Oh sure, yeah.
But
that's kind of
there's this war satire there and stuff.
Yeah.
Which they're big enough. So it was a bit of it was something that was happening at that time anyway. It had already happened or was happening. So it could position itself into that.
Yeah.
It's just curious to do that with the branding of Texas Chainsaw, which everyone knew as this, as you said, this more darker horror, straighter horror. And even this is played for laughs here. This
he's still spitting as well.
Yeah. And there's no real consistency with the violence. It's just comic book. It's all over the place. It's almost like Hammer horror.
It is, and the music's really kind of just playing up bigger, as well. Yeah.
Well, the ambience of the first one's kind of gone, and it's gone more for this, I guess.
In the first one, it used to be like whack down, they're dead. Or this one's kind of like whack, continuously bashing them.
And they wouldn't punctuate it with the music.
It's very unrealistic. In a way,
They wouldn't puncture it with music in the first one. This is playing very much to genre at the time. Again, I love all the material stuff that's in here too. The sort of the excess. Every corner of the room's kind of got a coloured light. Some novelty shop light in it.
It's got loads of why has it got tons of alcohol and stuff like that? There
stuff you just don't need.
Yeah. Sure, you'd have odd bits of food there, like a DJ booth, but not a. It's like a half, like a DJ booth and like a warehouse of food.
But again, those kind of things can only be bought, and kind of the lights and stuff, and the decor is all kind of stuff you get from novelty shops.
Yeah,
it's stuff you just don't need, and it's. I think there's of course it's unsubtle, but they're making
egg cartons as well. It's strange.
Well, I guess the soundproofing for.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
And that's a great show. We were saying about shock scare. That's a brilliant one. Coming through the.
Oh, you're totally right about the soundproofing because the whole ceiling was covered in them.
Yeah.
Now, before we recorded this commentary, Tim was saying that weren't fans upset with Leatherface's look for this one? Because the first one kind of had that iconic look where it just seemed to work so well. The mask he created from.
I can imagine that fans might be hesitant, seeing the. The iconic
this one seems to be made up for many different faces, isn't it? It seems to be there's stitching between.
Well, it's a lot more stylized, and they're playing to his buck teeth as well for comedy.
Oh, sure.
We were saying about fetishizing before. This is
really kind of a bit weird.
This is the furthest it kind of goes. The burning up the iced bath water with beer in it. It's almost like. A spring break video or something, with a scantily clad woman being drenched in iced water with beer in a beer cooler. She's basically sat in a beer cooler being used as jerk-off material.
And he's essentially using his chainsaw to symbolise his penis.
But somehow, we're with her. We're not looking at her going, she's a piece of meat, an exploitative disposal for the audience. We're sat there thinking, shit, I would do exactly the same thing, manipulate him. This is exactly the time that you should manipulate.
She can manipulate him very quickly, that she's kind of...
But it's dignified
one step ahead of him.
Yeah. I think she's brilliant. I think she's
Yeah,
good.
she really holds the film together.
Really, really good.
But when Dennis, Harper's not on screen, it's kind of she has to hold that film, keep the audience invested.
Yeah, I mean this is it's not completely gratuitous, but it's kind of
It's what you come to expect in like sort of the slasher movies of the 80s, but this film doesn't push it too far by having like tits in every other scene, or like it's just kind of, it's not subtle, but it's
but dry humping a chainsaw in a beer cooler, I mean,
yeah.
On paper,
at least it's different,
On paper, but you're not watching it and you're not thinking this is oddly arousing or anything. You're kind of just thinking, I'm with her, I want her to get out of there.
Definitely.
I do exactly the same thing, And you're on the edge of your seat because you don't know if the chainsaw is going to go on.
Yeah.
I think Hooper...
But then in a minute, because she starts screaming and panicking, but then he runs off and he says he's killed her. He's protecting her now, But do you think that's kind of like he's gonna literally like, blow his load essentially now? He's like shaking. He's like, ah.
Well, it's all kind of awkwardly left to interpretation.
Yeah.
I think
that's what I interpreted from this scene,
But what I like about it is all the kind of the sex is it's a secondary thing. It's really the tension about, is he going to turn the chainsaw on?
Sure, yeah.
Is she going to be another victim? Is she going to be another piece of hack meat? See, these moments here are kind of really sort of theatrical, the shrieking and the hands.
And he starts, jumping on the dancing on the spot. Yeah.
But somehow it manages to keep, it seems anchored somehow. Somehow it works. And I love these it's that dynamic push in there too. Brilliant.
That's what Russell Mulcahy uses quite a lot in Highlander, those sort of shots.
Yeah, well, it's all over Invaders from Mars and Life Force.
I haven't seen Invaders from Mars yet. I need to see that film.
Poltergeist has it as well, and the first Texas Chainsaw. The way she's hiding behind that neon clock as well. All the stuff you just don't need in life, is all kind of here. Whereas in the first film, it's the opposite, isn't it? It's all stripped down. It's using chickens as as little table pieces and using human skeletons as chairs.
Yeah,
it's kind of going back and using humans as eating material. And here we've got just excess stuff you just don't. It's going the other way and actually saying something.
Didn't we find it a little bit odd that he gives him he goes, "Give me 5." And he slaps his hand,
Well,
it's trying to be like
street lingo.
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But I kind of like that. I like the way that with the family, you were just saying before, like with the Breakfast Club poster. Here we're doing the high five, not high five thing, but the hand slapping thing.
Sure.
Getting down with the kids and.
Did you see? Sorry, in the background had that poster of Texas with an armadillo.
Right. Oh, okay.
Well, the first one where you see that destroyed, that remaining,
oh, right.
dead armadillo on the floor, don't you?
Yeah.
I think they were going to shoot like a dead horse, weren't they, or something like that? They revealed, but they said it was too gross.
And walks away holding the cowboy hat. Another kind of cowboy Texan stereotype. No, I love that. I love how there's so many of those novelty neon lights just strewn all over.
Oh yeah.
Over there, you always get nauseous looking at them as much as you do at the Gore. Yeah.
God damn it, Lefty, you're late.
Yeah, he's off screen for ages. Dennis is.
Yeah. I like how so much of the film takes place on those steps as well. The fact they have to go up to the radio station, go up a tower, and later on actually they have to go up as well.
It's got a sign there for a gun shop. Now, okay, right, you got a gun shop. What, directly below you? You can just go grab a gun and shoot them, But then it'd be the end of the film then, so it'd be ruined.
Again, it's a material thing.
It's weird, strange thing, isn't it? No one actually uses a gun in this film.
You see here we've got vertical Texas as well too. You can see there's a power station or a manufacturing site or something in the background, or buildings, and you've got this more this kind of.
Well, it's pushing the overpopulated city. It's kind of
but only to take it to this rundown carnival house.
Yeah.
which is like something from a... Well, on the outside, it's almost like the zoo from Batman Returns.
Yeah. Good point.
But it's really hyper stylized. It is expressionistic. It's like German expressionism, with all the the slanting and the the angularness of it. Just bumped in
There's
the
no
middle.
colour to it either, so it's
Yeah.
kind of got that black and white
Yeah, which looks great in these night shots.
design.
I'm saying the material thing again. There's those jeeps that the one Demi Moore had in St Elmo's Fire.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
driving one of those. She's a proper 80s girl, proper money making 80s girl. And we were mentioning about the art direction in the first film too. We were saying outdoors they have things like bits of skeleton and whatnot, and going into the houses, skeleton being used, bones being used as structure. And here we're starting to see a bit of that now with this this kind of tubing that goes round that the car drives through.
Good point.
It's like
I'd not paid
but it's
attention to that.
it's quite subtle. And
it is subtle. Yeah.
and it's quite clean looking. It's quite ordinary. It's quite industrial looking. It doesn't look like it's been purposefully made. It just looks like something that kind of looks like a rib cage if you were to think about it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't jump out at you. It's a clever textural thing. But when it gets, it's kind of the start though of the film's kind of change of visual tone, because once you get, I think once Stretch runs through and she falls through the trapdoors and she goes into the depths of the
It's quite
carnival.
convenient they got a trapdoor put there.
But it becomes
On cue.
which also, we say about Batman Returns, that was also something that happened with the zoo in Batman Returns when Max Schreck goes through the...
When he's in the sewers though, isn't
grated.
he goes on the back and falls through to their
Yeah, but it's
hideout.
it's the exact same gag. He's
Oh yeah,
standing
of course,
vertically,
yeah.
and then he goes down into the zoo hideout. But what I'm saying is here, we've set up all this stuff that kind of looks like rib cages, but then it goes even one further, and you spend the rest of the time in this, in this ridiculously surrealistic underground layer that looks like something. Well, it looks like a Hieronymus Bosch painting, in that it's using bits of
because Simon mentioned that when we
and
watched
grizzle.
it recently, and I was like, well, I can't remember these paintings, and he showed an image on Google. Absolutely spot on. When you go down his mural paintings, it's just like that.
Completely, and it's rich in that respect. But it kind of, it's like later on when you had, Hellraiser.
You got
2.
this, it's kind of like a moment you're falling down into hell, basically.
Yeah, Descent into Hell thing.
I mean, its uses of colour is very much reds and oranges.
Well, it's completely Hieronymus Bosch.
Yeah.
It's out and out, beautifully done. But it's so stylized, and there's no sense of scale in it either. It just looks massive.
There's a great scene when she runs down this corridor for ages, like this long.
And it's
when she gets chased.
it's probably like 20 meters long, and they've just redressed it.
Oh, probably, yeah,
but when you're watching it, you don't think that. You
No,
just
not at
imagine
all. You just think it's massive.
So this is all surrealistic and totally Bosch. With bits of bodies making up structure. Except this relies heavily on support beams.
I love that bit. We just the bone. Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Well, it's the gag that later gets used in Batman, isn't it? The lend you a hand.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, that gag's been used in lots of different films. But...
Oh yeah. It's going all Evil Dead now.
But they're making the comparison. It's like it's the scene in the in any film that's got a shootout sequence where you're tooling up and you're getting the guns. That's basically what that chainsaw sequence was earlier. We were talking about all the material side of that before, but I think that's kind of what it's symbolising. The fact
Definitely.
that you've got something that's meant to be a domestic material product. And
weaponised
and it's
basically.
and it's being used in the same way that in a cowboy film, because we're in Texas, you'd use a gun.
I love this moment because he runs up to the fence, screaming and charging at it, then just stops
Pauses,
and just opens
but
it.
stays completely in character the whole time. That even looks like an oil drill there. I love that sculpture of the
hand holding the giant
knife. Yeah,
knife. Yeah, it's great.
Great image of butchery. And a great entrance point for.
I think those
Dennis
chainsaws
Hopper.
would be quite heavy on your waist,
Well, I can imagine that it's probably a shell, isn't it?
Oh, of
For-
course,
just
of course.
for
But in
business.
reality, if you try and do that,
And here we go again with the textures of Texas with the bit of Civil War
This is a pretty gross scene, isn't it? But
coming out the
it's
mouth.
kind of like this storage container hidden behind a wall with all these body insides, intestines and stuff. Probably the bits they don't really like eating, maybe.
The fact that it's coming out of the mouth of this,
Oh, disgusting.
you see there was Civil War imagery and it was coming
Sure.
out, the blood was dripping out the mouths of one
Yeah.
of the victims.
The strange thing is, if you go online and you see the release dates for this film and its running time, now this is at 140 minutes, it's 141, so it's 101 minutes, and it says underneath in brackets there was a re-release at 89 minutes. Now, I don't know if that's a re-release down to in other countries where they've cut a lot out and just and put it in the theatres, but in the UK it was banned for a number of years. I think it still may actually be banned in Germany still. Australia had a very strict policy on this film, and it was banned for a long time. And but in the UK, it was supposed to come out in 1990. Now, this is what 4 years after its theatrical release in the States. And the BBFC wanted to cut 20 to 25 minutes out of the film, so that's a lot. That ends up with a film literally just over an hour long. Obviously, Canon probably went, well, no, we're not going to release a film that's just over 60 minutes long. So it never actually got a theatrical release over here. So, from what I've read online, if anyone who was around at the time and was fully aware of its theatrical release, then please let me know. But from what I can gather, on the BBFC website, it was given its kind of certificate, obviously an 18 certificate, in 2001. So that's 15 years after its theatrical release in the States. But I'm sure that at that point, most people have probably seen it via bootlegs or importing an NTSC tape or laserdisc.
Notoriety.
Yeah.
It's a very surrealistic space, isn't it? So we can see, I guess, with the Civil War mural, that it's kind of, it's a kind of locally themed park.
Oh, sure.
But then
he's also got the new kind of like technology, which is kind of the electric bread knife now to sort of use as a sort of tool. When in the first one, it was just like this big like meat cleavers, wasn't it?
But it's funny, as you said, it's being used as a miniature chainsaw.
Yeah.
More than anything else. This is probably one of the most gruesome moments.
Oh yeah, that's gross.
In the film.
He's like cutting off the guy's leg, like the skin of his leg, and then it's his face.
And it's odd though, as we said, because you set up the film at the beginning and you've got, from the opening shots, you've got all this kind of over the top, played for laughs stuff with young jock yuppies, firing guns as they're going across in cars. From the outset, it's a fantasy world. It's a completely fantasy world.
Yeah.
So when you do have moments like this, which are pure gore, I mean, this is like, this is comparable to some of the violence you'd see in something like a
I think this is probably what shocked a lot of the
torture porn movie now or something. It's
definitely,
big
yeah,
and it's not it's squeamish stuff. Not for the faint of heart. But because you've set up that tone of everything being in an unrealistic world, you kind of it becomes a bit more cartoonier. You can kind of get away with it a bit more, I think. Whereas if you had this scene happening in the first film, it would just be completely unpleasant.
Yeah. Well, it'd be a huge tonal shift, I think.
Yeah.
Also, I presume this scene probably upset a lot of the, the classification board members. Probably hence why the film was banned in a number of countries.
But I can imagine this scene in the first film, but it would be terrifying. It'd be horrible.
Oh yeah.
Whereas here,
but they probably wouldn't even show it. Like in the first one, but they'd use a lot of sound, I think, to sort of.
Well, out of necessity, they'd have to. But I could still imagine that kind of graphic sequence happening. Whereas here, it's.
I suppose you could say, as your imagination, you'd see this in the first one. When you do watch, when she's put on the the spike or the hook.
The idea, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's comparable stuff.
Yeah,
It's
but this one
after
you
stuff.
actually see it. You know, without actually having to use your imagination.
Yeah, well, you're seeing the after effect too. You know, with the guy with the, just the,
Yeah, oh yeah, he wakes up. Is that's completely comical.
yeah. Well, even more so in that you see him doing his spitting motion.
Yeah. When he,
You know, his caricature spit. You know, Texan spit.
You know, like a lot of horror films, or kind of in terms of when there's a scary moment, they play it out with a bit of comedy.
Yeah.
Sort of, that it kind of does that with this, where he goes wakes up and he's like, oh shit, that's disgusting, but he's like, he starts spitting and being himself again. So it's kind of a bit of a comedic.
Well, no, but he's a one-note character in many ways. Even though it's a great performance, it's deliberately. He's got this one gesture that he does with the spitting, which is repeated, which isn't particularly naturalistic. And as you say, before when he was being hit by a hammer, he was doing it when
Yeah.
you never, you wouldn't. It creates its own kind of stylized sort of performance.
Sure.
But it's things like that weigh it down, that kind of that stop it from being out and out offensive, because you're kind of you're laughing. Oh look, there's that caricature character who just spits, and he's got half of his body, third of his body hacked off.
These ribs and stuff.
But you kind of, because you're detached from it, because you're looking at it and it's a stylized performance. You're not. It wouldn't get you in the same way if it happened to someone say if it happened to Franklin in the first film. Then it would just be like whoa, like whoa,
It'd be too much,
whoa, yeah. But it's that again. It's that, as you say, it's that grounding. It's if you kill somebody in a comedy and it's set up as a comedy,
Sure.
then it becomes black humor, and it's like the intent is there.
Yeah.
Whereas if you if you're to kind of mangle somebody in a straight film,
Yeah.
you can't. That's you're committed to that violence and you're committed to the horror.
Oh, of course. It's interesting that in the first one, Leatherface dresses up as a kind of a woman halfway through, like the sort of drag act. He's kind of put makeup on, the wig on, through the lunch, with the bit where they're having dinner. In this one, I don't think he does that. I don't think they push that element, because but in the later ones, I think by number 4, he's kind of. Well, I remember some of the reviews online. He's they're pushing a sort of a drag act quite a bit.
But they're making fun of the character so much in this anyway.
Mm.
In an interesting way, by playing it as this kind of pushing that sort of puppy, the harmless puppy dog, the scared, animal, scared child thing, and here you've got him doing the.
They kind of make him a bit
singing
more
along.
lovable in a way. I mean, he's far more terrifying in the first one. That moment where he's kind of, he's getting frustrated by where are these people coming from, and he's looking out the window, and it's just kind of the noise and the screaming. He just kind of sits there, just, looking out the window, and you see in his eyes how sort of kind of demented he is in a way. And this one, it is kind of a caricature of the original.
I mean, this is all, yeah. It's funny, isn't it, when Dennis Hopper does this hacking away of all of these support beams, and the top ones stay and the bottom ones fall.
And
And
he's cutting through foam, isn't he?
So you never see. Well, you never see it.
Polystyrene or something.
You never see it. Kind of crush
No.
everyone beneath. You never see it kind of go down, but you kind of, you get it and you buy it. It's interesting. It's funny. I thought when when he stuck the face of LG, the face of LG onto Stretch. I thought it would be so that he could do a Trojan horse thing and pretend that she's a corpse and maybe dragging her around to get her out.
I thought that.
But it
as
seems
well.
like it's almost a thing where he can make her an equal to her.
Yeah.
And he can see things from I guess from his eyes, too.
Possibly.
It's used as a bonding moment. And here's the horrible moment
Oh,
when
it's-
LG comes back. Which is, again, as I say, is diffused by the spitting.
It's so gross. I don't think it's kind of they've managed to achieve the effect on his face of his skin being removed. It kind of just looks a bit, I don't know, it doesn't look right. But I think where the ribs are and stuff, it does look proper gruesome, and
I
it's
think
very effective. But it's like he just put his face in some sort of red dessert or something.
I disagree. I think it's very effective, but thankfully it isn't. Thankfully, it does play to the sort of more theatrical presentation, because it's such a gruesome idea. It's such a gruesome image that you wouldn't want to put anyone through ever.
Oh, of course.
It's kind of like, as you're saying before, the rules of storytelling and the rules of cinema when you set things up. As I said before about if you set something up to be a comedy, you can diffuse things like this, or you can make the intent seem that something's comical, and kind of play with that. And we've got that, as you said, with the spitting before. But I think maybe with the makeup too, in that it is slightly stylized, rather than being completely anatomically.
Realistic, really.
Yeah, but committing completely to that, I think that would be too much for a comedy. It's like, in A Fish Called Wanda, when the dog gets crushed.
Yeah.
And you don't see entrails and stuff.
No, you just see like this pancake dog.
I think this is the kind of equivalent of that with somebody with their
chest
being
ripped
off.
Right,
And I think you kind of get the black humour then, rather than being left going, ugh. Although saying that, this is just
it's
so
grotesque,
much,
but it's not pushed to a point where you want to vomit.
Especially when you put stuff against white, it just looks, it's like in RoboCop 2.
Yeah.
There's the sequence where the corrupt cop gets.
Oh, I guess his stomach
gets cut open.
But you only see like a few seconds of it. But that moment, you see the stomach begin to split. It's just gross, but because you hear the screaming off camera.
Yeah.
But
he's covered.
Totally buy it though.
But he's covered entirely in a white sheet.
Yeah.
And even though you're not seeing anything, it's just that when you see blood going across a white sheet.
If you remember Hellraiser 2, when he was covered in bandages. It's just
Yeah. Or when she's wearing the fetishized moment, when she's wearing the white suit as well, isn't she? Walking in the house and it's beige everywhere and she's touching everything. It's the same kind of thing. So it's a very kind of graphic, language. But again, this is just good textural, formal, use of form.
Red shows up best on white.
Yeah. And there's something quite arena-like as well. If you look in the background, the lighting with the big shafts of light coming through and stuff.
Oh, of course.
You see, it's like I don't know if that's part of the fairground ride within within
possibly.
the setting.
I think because it's something that kind of modified its own, obviously, dwellings, but it.
But it becomes this huge, just living Hieronymus Bosch painting.
Mm.
And that isn't an indulgence either. That hasn't come out of nowhere. There's elements of that on a smaller scale. There's the inverse of that in the first film, as we said, when you see the bones of the chairs and stuff.
Sure.
The chicken heads and whatever else. This is just taking it to the biggest, most fantastical scale.
Taking it up to 11.
Look at this. This is complete Bosch. It's fantastic. It's amazing, isn't it? Sculptural.
It also feels a bit like a kind of a nightmare sequence on Elm Street where you're thrown into this mad world,
In later films, I guess, like Insidious, with the depiction of the further in there.
Mm.
They all kind of they have these slightly heightened theatrical versions of hell. But the villain in Insidious has a similar kind of layer with hanging chandeliers and such.
But the whole, the father, he's completely bonkers. Just like he's so erratic. He's like punching, kicking them, and it's like, repair this, do that, and then he's never. He can never decide on one thing. He just keeps changing his mind on what he wants to do.
Mm.
It's like kind of watching like the Three Stooges at this point.
Yeah. Well, they've really pushed it, really, really pushed. Like in the first film, the idea of him, of the old man bossing around the hitchhiker and also Leatherface, kind of punching above his weight. These people who could potentially kill him if they wanted to, but they're blood related, so there seems to be this sort of weird respect, even though there's no female family members around. Oddly enough, and they've pushed it even more in this, in this aspect. But no, I like that idea, we were saying before about materialism and consumption. I think consumption is like a big thing, there's a theme about consumption in here too. There's an expectation built up too with the butane tank, which doesn't really hit off until, much later on.
Yeah.
But you're just looking, I think it's an audience member terrified and dying for Stretch to get out of here. You're just looking for any way possible to get the character out.
The only way she can get out is through the fucking tube right next to him.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's other ways for her to get out, but
We've got 80s rock music playing too, being with Chop Top holding a radio like a ghetto.
but you were saying
blaster on
earlier
his
about
shoulder.
the music. I mean, at the moment, the kind of existing pop music within the film is kind of not played out that often. Actually, it's only kind of played out very quietly in the background sometimes.
But when it does come up, it's kind of it's almost used as underscore at the beginning for that car chase, isn't
Yeah.
it? And I think it's very much at the front where you accept it in the it's a character with the with the DJ station.
I think probably a lot of the budget was probably licensing the music.
This is just it's mental, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it. Doesn't he refer to it as some sort of rat he saw?
I also think Hooper gets much more playful too in here, and the blocking and the way things are shot. It reminds me more of like Salem's Lot and Life Force and Poltergeist. I think he operates really well when he's given these huge budget kind of playgrounds. And I think a carnival, Nightmare Carnival.
Do you think out of the 3 films he did for Canon, what do you think is probably the best one? Do you think out of the bunch? You'd say probably
my favourite is probably Life Force.
Yeah, me too. I've not seen Invaders from Mars, so I can't comment on that one.
Well, I like that too. I think that's quite sincere and earnest in his affection for the original, because they use a lot of.
That was kind of like very much like Carpenter's way of doing The Thing from Another World, which did the H2 thing.
Or Cronenberg and The Fly.
The Fly, yeah.
On it, here we have a sequence in which Lefty meets Franklin from the first film.
Yeah.
Because he's his uncle.
That's right, because it's only hinted at. You only get a little bit of information at the beginning when he's at the crime scene and he talks to the other officer about his relation to these incidents. And he's still carrying the torch and the batteries go out.
It's great, isn't it?
It's really good, yeah.
It's clever. But again, it's really sort of impressionistic, and it's expressionistic in that it's telling us, about the light of Franklin dying out because he's finally met. Got to see him.
Good point.
But this is all old school storytelling. I think Toby Hooper just is really good at channeling stuff like that. We're coming closer towards the end now.
It's interesting to know. I mean, what else was cut of Dennis Hopper's character? Because it was kind of. I would have liked to know more about him. You don't really get to know much about him. He's kind of he's thrown into the film, and he has a sort of backstory about about his his relatives obviously being killed off in the first one. But that's about it. And he comes in and ends up just chopping down their base, as it were. But
we've got a nod to religion here, just a little bit.
There's a Doctor Strangelove, isn't there? Reference where little skeleton sitting on a bomb later on.
But I think there's a mention of Lord of the Harvest with Lefty later on.
This whole set piece here is huge. This goes on forever. I don't think they redressed that. I think that's just look. You can see the length of it.
No, look, because they cut to here and the background's out of focus, and then they probably put a mirror up at the end of it.
That's a good point.
It's wonderful. It's such a vivid vision of hell. Even putting traffic lights in it's quite clever. And there's another shock scare.
Does a little jig. Da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da.
See, that's a funny little gesture in this, isn't it? That
Yeah.
Stylizing things. And the score's quite big here as well.
It's pushed it back in again because it had been no music for ages. I had a little bit of score when she approached the sort of theme park area at the beginning of this sort of end sequence. I always thought when I saw it, I thought she got crushed at that point, but there's so many scenes of her just screaming at camera, like really major, like extreme close-ups, you know.
Talk about it. Okay, what are you pissed off? What about me? Listen, this is not gonna work out. I'm trying to be helpful with you. It's nobody's fault.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? That there's no dialogue from Leatherface, but we kind of get this sort of implied relationship that's so tenuous and vague. I mean, it's non-existent really, but it's communicated so well. Love Drayton Sawyer's costume as well, which is part of the rolling grill company.
The guy playing Leatherface, is it Bill Johnson, isn't it? He plays Leatherface.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it's Bill Johnson. He's not as big as Gunnar, the first guy who played him, Gunnar Hansen. He's kind of got, you know, his shoulders aren't as big. I think he's kind of more just. He's got. You can see he's got big arms and stuff. He's got the height.
But they go much closer in on Leatherface too on this. There are many more close-ups, and the only thing he can really act with, apart from those
It's
big
his
gestures,
eyes,
are
isn't
the
it?
eyes, and also
Yeah.
his mouth.
Yeah,
If you look, there's a lot of tongue acting in this.
they push it a lot, don't they? He does his tongue really in the first one, like once or
But that's
twice. you know?
yeah. But you never go in really close, you know, like you do here in the first one.
Mm.
Hey, you had to find out about it, didn't you?
He's much more, it's more about
You wanted to know about it.
his physical presence, Leatherface's physical presence in the first one, whereas here they're actually trying to get some emotion and try and make him more of a character. To have some sort of emotional bond with Stretch. Sorry, played by Caroline Williams.
Yeah,
Sorry,
you'd forgotten her name, had you?
yeah. Very sorry, Caroline Williams. Caroline, if you're listening, I'm very sorry, but I think your performance is fantastic.
You were supposed to finish her. Finish her now.
The other thing I think on the other side of this is that when you're playing everything for laughs too, or you've certainly heightened the humour, and you know that it's kind of blackly comic, and you come into anticipation points like this.
Yeah,
Some of the suspense is more about it's just waiting for things to happen rather than actually being in suspense.
sure.
Because later on, I mean, Stretch gets hit with the head twice.
Yeah.
Which would probably kill her in real life. But
That's true.
But
yeah.
you're kind of like, yeah, okay, it's a device to keep her,
But then
to
it
get
plays
to the
up
next scene.
because it's kind of homaging, the first one. The method way they're trying to kill her with putting her head in a bucket and trying to hit her on the head with a hammer isn't going to kill her because if they're playing it, if they're doing like the first one,
But it becomes like the only thing you can really rely on for that to be entertaining is the humour of it.
Yeah.
As opposed to suspense.
And like the first one where the woman's tied to her chair.
Yeah.
And they all prepare for dinner.
This is bigger, isn't it? Bigger. Oh, I love this. This is so good. This is all one shot, isn't it?
Pans out.
This is pretty much all one shot.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It's beautifully blocked.
It's kind of like he forgot his lines there, didn't he? It's like,
But you kind of like that. There's something quite broken about the old man as he talks too. He's just rambling, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. He's a very half-assed salesman, basically.
Yeah. And again, this is still one shot. And I like too, if you notice on the table, there's actually vegetables this time. In the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
It's all about the
movie,
meat. I think it
at
had
the end
sausages
sequence.
as well.
No,
didn't
it's just pure meat.
Was it? Mhm.
In the first film, at the end when they're on the table, whereas here you can actually see greens. You can see salad, and you can see see them.
There's
Look.
bread there.
Yeah, and but you see there's greens. There's like onions and stuff. And again, this one shot, and we pull back. Also Tabasco sauce as well, which hasn't changed in 30 years. And look, we keep pulling back and pulling back. Look at, I mean, this is pure Hieronymus.
Still one shot.
Yeah.
It's crazy. That's really well done.
Yeah. And look at that, it's pure Bosch. And look to the left of the frame, and you can see the the
Strangelove.
you can see a reference to Dr. Strangelove.
And they've brought back Grandpa, haven't they?
Yeah. But instead of cutting, again, this is still one shot. It's the same shot. It's so dynamic. And then we cut.
It's crazy that he's been kept alive for what they say he's 137 years old, and
But I mentioned before, you were saying about the Doctor Strangelove reference with the
skeleton. I think, yeah.
skeleton waving a cowboy hat, riding the riding of the bomb. Again, taking all these kind of the most negative kind of anything
Stereotypes, you mean?
Stereotypes of things linked to Texas and just dressing them everywhere. I mean, it's all over this film. There are just little bits like that kind of all over. As you said before, the gun shop.
Also, because he's from Texas as well, he can kind of get away with it, really, and because he's kind of satirising himself as well, because he's from there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's an interesting approach. And this is kind of, a retread of the scene with Sally at the end of the first film, but taking a more disturbed approach. The makeup's very different.
He seems
Grandpa.
more like, the weird thing is their grandpa seems more alive in this one, even though he's older. He's got more movement to a certain degree, even though he's still useless with trying to hold the hammer to batter over the head.
I mean, it comes across as very Tom and Jerry, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I think that's what I was trying to make. I was saying before about the, about the gore kind of being not diluted but softened somewhat. The rat coming out of the chili bowl, the chili trophy. Just
because the last half an hour of the film is kind of this sort of hellish sort of torture sequence. There isn't really much story going on here. You get little bits of dialogue where he talks about.
Well, it's a send up of the original, isn't it?
Oh, of course, yeah.
From now on.
But when I kind of revisit it, it does feel like it does kind of drag on a little bit too long. I think there's the reveal in the moment where he talks about the grandfather saying he couldn't do it anymore, the shame of it, or something like that. But it isn't really revealed what he was shameful of, or what he was ashamed of. They talk about having big cookouts for him and the family get together. But it's not really made clear, well, to me anyway, when he discusses his past to Stretch. She's a bit possessed, isn't she?
I love these elaborate camera moves that Toby Hooper does. He's just such a master of these kind of big wide-angle block sequences with editing that happens in the camera. I mean, then you just you got your reveal. You got a bunch of singles. You got a wide shot. Now you're pushing back into the single of Grandpa.
Cameras are always going back and forth, isn't it?
But narratively, it's telling a story.
Yeah, of course.
He just got such confidence with that, and it's kind of a staple of all of his work. There's a great website actually, a blog on Toby Hooper, that kind of goes through lots of different films and breaks down a lot of the shots of how how he's blocked and staged action and composed, for the screen, and it's great to see other people recognising.
Oh wow! I have to put a link to that
too. It's very informative. It's very, very informative. This kind of expects you to come kind of with the knowledge of, the fresh memory of having seen.
Yeah,
the
you would
first
have
one,
to have kind of seen the
which
first one.
Which is kind of odd, as this came out over 10 years after the first one came out. I mean, when would the last re-release of this been out? When was the video release even? Do we know?
So the first one?
Yeah, in relation to this
in
film.
America it probably would have come out maybe like 82, 83 maybe, but in relation to the UK, obviously it would have been banned. I mean, you've already got like some VHS copies released without any certificate and got away with it.
So they've effectively just remade the end sequence from the first film.
Yeah.
But at the time, would you care? Would you be like, because you hadn't seen the film for over 10 years?
That's a good point.
Can you get away with it? I mean, now with DVD and stuff, if the original had come out now, and then even 10 years later, if you were to see the film, because it'd been on television and been on DVD, you'd be so familiar with it. You
probably end up being a bit disappointed. I think obviously people were at the time disappointed with the film.
But this whole sequence, the only difference is that there's the punchline of the old man, hitting Stretch over the head.
Sure. They finally figure it out. It's not her bringing down their house, as it were.
I love the way how again the way the old man is using this. Drayton is using the space.
Yeah.
Too. It's very.
It's pottering about. Isn't
theatrical. It? Yeah. It's not natural, but it's good. It's good. It knows what it is and it's playing with it. They were saying before, this kind of the other thing too. This feels like it bridges, I guess, that gap of the next generation of horror filmmakers at that time, such as Sam Raimi and Peter Jackson.
Yeah,
I think this kind of, as we get further on to the end of the film, and everything becomes really surreal and wacky.
Yeah,
it makes you think of the Evil Dead films or Bad Taste.
Bad Taste, yeah, I was thinking Bad Taste.
But you can see, this kind of. I think if you just show somebody who didn't know Bad Taste and didn't know Evil Dead, parts of this movie, well, especially in this climactic area, I think they'd probably think it was kind of the same thing.
You think you could say even though obviously Toby Hooper sort of set the standard with the first film, and this one he's sort of satirising what was kind of quite common in with films at the time.
That parodying
it, but now he's also bringing in kind of new ideas as well.
Well, that idea of funny gore,
that
you see very much in Bad Taste.
Yeah,
it's all over the place,
Oh yeah.
And Brain Dead. This is it. This is like the.
Who's that? I love that bit.
Gore porn paid for laughs.
But he gets such a nasty. He doesn't get killed, obviously, but he gets attacked by Dennis. He's getting a chainsaw up the bum. Lefty. I love that.
See, this is quite unfortunate for Stretch at this point because she's been hit twice over the head.
Yeah.
She's basically become a Tom and Jerry character that's just been banged on the head twice. I think there's a thing about consequence too. We were saying about the violence. This is sort of Tom and Jerry consequence because that Stretch is going to live to the end, even though really she should be brain damaged. It's kind of she's going to kind of shake it off and keep going as they do, and it's the same too with Drayton Sawyer when he gets the chainsaw up his backside as well. You almost think he's kind of. You could imagine him shrugging it off and walking on.
He goes off and complains about his hams, as it were. He calls it.
Yeah. What is that? Is that referring to hemorrhoids, or is it just a?
I think it's his butt cheeks. I think. Really.
Right.
His bum.
I like this is sort of Errol Flynn sword fight.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, where they make full use of the set, and it kind of looks like a cavern from the Robin Hood movie.
Yeah.
More great use of space here.
When he gets hit, it's so comical, isn't it? So
It's
mad.
great crunchy sound design too. And now we got the sparks going on the sword fight with chainsaws. But it is, look, I mean, it's the same.
fighting
It's
the
like
table, like in
fighting
Robin Hood,
Yeah,
you
like
know.
King John's castle table.
Can't see the sequence like in The Rocketeer, where you got Timothy Dalton being like the Errol Flynn character, you know.
But again, playing for stylization too. You know, you can't hear any of the sound of the chainsaws going, and he's right underneath the
Yeah,
the
definitely.
fight.
Take care of my hands. There you go.
I think it's a really great performance as well.
Oh,
Two
yeah.
of Drayton's. I think in this film, because it's consistent with the first film, even though he's in
Yeah,
a
he
completely
still,
different
he
universe.
still plays that kind of,
Yeah,
that sort of completely eccentric.
I've got a lot of respect for that. It's like same with Gremlins before. You know, in Gremlins 2, there's that scene where Phoebe Cates has to do the basically a retread of the Santa Claus chimney story from the first film.
Oh yeah.
And but it's about it was about a man who talks to her, and she's having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but she's playing it completely in character, whereas everybody else is sort of being irreverent about it and going, "Oh God, she's doing this awkward story. Okay, honey, let's go," shoving her out the way. But Phoebe Cates isn't making fun of it. The script and everything else makes fun of it. But the characters stay in. But she's also in on the joke too. You know, you can see it's just such a great piece of acting. And I think it's the same for the guy playing Drayton Sawyer. He's fantastic.
Oh, that's pretty gross.
But even here, the intestines hanging out at the end, they're kind of.
The thing is, kind of like with all sequels, is people kind of expect the same kind of film again, but kind of something a little bit new to it. Where Back to the Future 2 did the smart thing of kind of sending you right back to where they went in the first one. But with Gremlins 2 and Chainsaw Massacre 2, we went a completely different direction.
I think it depends how self-contained a film is.
Yeah.
You know, with Back to the Future, you kind of have the room. Well, you got the whole future. You got the whole of time to play with, to do something. So it's a bit more tempting. Where do you go with Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yeah.
Where do you go once you've been there? It's like, I guess, people look at Aliens all the time because that's such a great sequel. Because they managed to retread and go straight back to the original location and characters of the first film, and open it up and change genre into something else, but make it work. Gremlins, where would you go with Gremlins other than
Yeah.
there's only so far you can kind of go.
It's very tough, and I think filmmakers, actually, a lot of people that criticise it probably didn't think carefully about how difficult it would be to do a sequel without completely doing the same thing and end up disappointing the audiences again. If they were upset with a sequel.
I mean, if you had a more straight-laced, we say that we've acknowledged that the original isn't really straight-laced. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is stylized in its own way. I love that the exit, the way they set the exit up in the radio room, and they're doing it here. But I mean, if they had done maybe something that was more in the spirit of the original, or kind of maybe more, don't want to say spirit, because this is in the spirit of the original. It's just much more theatrical. If they had something that was maybe perhaps a bit more toned down, but it was an exploitation flick, kind of like how Death Wish 2 was to Death Wish 1. Would that be better, or would people complain that you were just having people?
In hindsight, you could
ripped
probably
apart
say,
as
"Oh,
meat.
it could be better," but you just don't know, do you?
This Funhouse thing with like in the first film, how they how Sally runs out at the end of the first film, and it's daylight outside, and this is kind of their version of it. But because it's at the top of this funhouse tower, and as you say, it's white, so it shows up really well in the dark.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like it almost looks like a cliffside beach kind of.
It does, doesn't it?
You know, and it reminds me of New Zealand in bad taste. This looks the most like a kind of Raimi Jackson thing here with the slanted
definitely
angles.
Raimi, I think, with me. Yeah. Like, the main thing is, you never. I also thought he was just like whacking her, but he's actually just cutting her up.
Yeah.
And when you get inside the castle, as it were, you find the remains of their grandmother. It's just sort of become this huge shrine to her. It's like stab her in the back. Oh, it's horrible.
But it's not. Again, it's one of those things where you see out the window here. You see that there's a theatrical stage backing there for the sky. But before that, you could see out onto the Texan landscape, and it was all green hills, and that reminds me of Peter Jackson. It reminds me of New Zealand, and so and this, kind of, you wonder if maybe they fed off or whatever. But and as we're getting handheld too, this with wide lenses and comedy bit, and slanted angles and things, it just feels, as we said, more sort of Jackson and Raimi. But that, as we said, that shrine isn't consistent with the grandma who we see at the end of the first film.
No, the first one, she's just sitting in the upstairs bedroom with Grandpa, but on a chair. But she's also dead, and you also thought he was dead as well until you find out he's still alive and just living off blood.
She almost looks like Conan's dad, Conan the Barbarian.
It's Crom.
More than anything more than anything else in the first film. And these winged heads that they've got behind
spinning
him.
around. That's pretty nasty.
But it's not unlike in the first film when the hitchhiker cuts his hand up.
No.
Like Death eating a cracker.
Get the chainsaw! Come on.
This is super fantastic. This looks like something out of Evil Dead, doesn't it, this part?
Definitely.
Could even be the third one.
Third one, yeah.
Completely. Well, the chainsaw.
Oh, yeah.
And there's that kind of no attempt to go with realism at all here.
No.
This is
It's also weird that he's he says, "Oh, you've killed Grandma." It's like, well, she's kind of already dead. She wasn't already like.
But she's killed the shrine, I guess.
Yeah.
But as we said, that's in the first film. She's not in a shrine at the top of a theme park with holding a chainsaw.
Yeah, they put more, but they don't really. I suppose it's kind of the whole Ed Gein thing where his mother was so important to him, and he kept her body, whatever, kept everything the same, wasn't it, when she passed away? I think.
Well, it certainly played up more in this than it is in the original.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and here we go. The end of Chop Top.
Yeah.
This is a great shot here, as you said before.
Yeah,
he kind of does a pinball and goes.
Look at that! It's so well done.
It's a pinball shot, isn't it?
Yeah. And she's obviously doing the same thing. Leatherface,
see, that looks totally Sam Raimi to me.
Oh yeah.
This is Sam Raimi before,
before Army Darkness.
Yeah. As you said, with the weaving round with the chainsaw.
It's just dancing, isn't she, with it? It's crazy to just jump straight into end credits, isn't it, like the last one?
Yeah, and this time, ending the film is a very sort of pop music, radio friendly Stuart Copeland song.
Yeah,
which is kind of a light-hearted. It's kind of a light-hearted summary of the film, and it's kind of not unlike the end credits of, say, American Werewolf, where you've got Blue Moon playing, and it kind of relieves the tension, but it's also relieving to the film. But I think it's especially apt with this because Stuart Copeland was from the Police, his drummer from the Police.
That's right.
Very highly regarded pop musician. Certainly the kind of artist you hear on pop music radio. So it plays nicely with the with the character of Stretch and her background. So that's it. That's.
What were your final thoughts really on the film? Do you think it was actually a pretty good sequel?
I think it's very, very enjoyable. And I think it's a great satire on 80s excess, materialism, capitalism, with of course consumption, both corporate and cannibalist.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it has playful, fun Texan stereotypes to kind of go with it, and lovingly too. You know, everything from the Dr. Strangelove bum riding, to the gun store that's underneath the radio station.
I can sympathise with the fans of the original who were probably upset with the change in this one, the change in tone and sort of the far more sort of crazy sort of style of comedy. But the comedy's not too much push in your face. I mean, it's there. I mean, it's not laugh out loud funny, but it's. 13 years had passed.
Yeah.
What else are we going to do with it?
And also, as we said before, you wouldn't have had the luxury in the 80s of seeing, I guess, a video copy of the Texas Chainsaw prior to watching
you
this.
You probably called it if you got re-showings of it at the cinema or sort of those sort of roadshow sort of what are they called again? Those you watch it in your car and watch it on the big screen.
Right, the drive-ins.
Drive-ins, yeah, sorry.
But, it's a very playful, very much different to the first film in that this time the violence is very much... It is essentially, even though it's super gory, it's Tom and Jerry violence with no real consequence. I think that's the difference. There's no consequence with this film. But the actual violence itself is it's set up to be balanced in a different way.
If you noticed earlier, actually, the end credits had Joe Bob Briggs, who was actually... said moviegoer, but his scene was actually cut from the film, so it's surprised they still credited him in it, even though it was cut. It's very strange. But I think that's a deleted scene was probably maybe on a DVD or something like that. But I've not seen it. But yeah, well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the commentary. I will be back soon with some more next week.
Bye.
Bye.